Yeah, it's stochastic fiction game time. Let me go ahead. We'll start the game by creating the stochastic fiction outline. But more importantly, we're going to start the game by actually putting this to our. Oh, wait a second. We don't want that long. It is the stochastic fiction game, and what happens during the stochastic fiction game is during a frame of time of 2 hours, we write a story based upon a stochastic outline that's generated, which I can do by typing in this command and using this script, stochastic fiction, just stochastic. And then that's going to output a file. And if I do something like this, my local repository, the way that I save all my data, including fiction stories and nonfiction stories and source code, binaries, images, life stuff like text, well, that application tells me that there's this newly created stochastic fiction outline. We're going to open that up. And we are here, and our time is counting. Whoa, not again. But I suppose that's how stochastic fiction sometimes works. And by what I mean not again format novel first chapter, I believe I've done that recently. It's a work on the mind to get this done. For today's story elements of the stochastic fiction game, setting time, present. Setting place, lake. Conflict, technology. Characters, mini. Points of view first. Tense, past tense. Genre, science fiction. Format novel first chapter. Well, okay. Some things I could be familiar with, like, technology, science fiction, past tense. Past tense in science fiction could be any time if you so choose. Present, no, setting time is present, written in past tense. That's fine. So it's present day. Yeah, the novel first chapter. So now I have to think of an entire book and then write its first chapter, which is a lot better than thinking of an entire book and writing the middle chapter. Because then you really, yeah, that's a fun one. Okay. Yeah, present, lake, technology. I'm having a lot of thoughts right now. I mean, obviously, time, lake, and technology, and present, and science fiction. I like it. And there's many people. First person, okay, so it's the I. And obviously, his I is either going to be the observer. I don't think they're going to be maybe they'll be the protagonist. Maybe they'll be the antagonist. If it's present day in science fiction, it's present day contemporary technology. Maybe a little bit easier. I could see having some fun little book about someone who hates all either the motorboats or the drones flying around, but it's science fiction. So present time setting doesn't necessarily need to happen during the present because we're in science fiction land, but the actual scene, I guess, or the book will take place in the present, but we can have ideas about it being in any time we want with any tech we want. So we're not limited to the technology we know. It just has to take place in the present day. It has to take place around a lake. The conflict is this technology, this science fiction. That's going to be the technology likely. Characters, many. Well, I could see this being like either some close community, maybe really backwoods, or along like vacation, suburb, or maybe it's just a remote. I like remote. The many people make the remote a little bit more different, maybe a little weird. And the tense, past tense, that's fine. Science fiction novel first chapter, okay. The more I talk about it, probably the less I write. So let's write. Of course, I do like talking, so let's continue that as well so I can think these thoughts out loud of how I create and how this game is played. I need to think of at least a book now on a lake with many people in technology. And it's science fiction. I'd love to be science. Well, have positive. Like for some reason, what's coming to my mind right now is articles I've read. The same article, I think, and I don't know how I got there and what path of reading, but it's about these lakes that are getting covered in green algae because of all the phosphorus and chemicals that are getting dumped into it. Phosphates, I think that's the proper word to call it, are getting dumped into the lake. And that is, of course, killing everything. Maybe there's a science, maybe this is a story about, what's the conflict again? The conflict is technology, though. You know, shoot. And it's science fiction. So it doesn't really have to be real technology. It could be like if the conflict is with technology, I didn't make this, and you have to have a conflict. Else, really, there's no story. Much like you really can't have a sentence if there's no verb, because the verb makes the object. And I don't think you can really have conflict and have a story. You got to have conflict to resolve. I need to get and open that door. My conflict is the door. It's technology. How do I open the door? In this case, the lake, maybe there's a purifying thing that they tried to create, and instead of cutting back on the use of chemicals or even disposal of chemicals that is causing harm to the environment, which, yes, will cause harm to us humans. It may take a little longer, but it's coming. If we continue on the path we're going. But I don't want to go dystopia. I'm tired of it. Really tired of it. I've written a lot of dystopia. I say that every single time. Probably have done this. I've got to try to have it at least maybe a balance. Maybe at the end there's some sort of uplifting fact, and the conflict could be, I don't know. It's science fiction too. So I can have them like create a wand or something that it's got to be a book. Like I think I think I'd be completely happy in life right now if it randomly gave me format flash fiction. I think I'd be smiling. If it gave me format, I think I got format tall tale. There's that genre, I can't remember. I believe I had format epopee at one time, and that was just too ridiculous. Maybe that was genre, who knows? I don't. I got novel first chapter of a book, technology. Let's go over and reread real quick just to get this present time. It is today. Lake. I'm going to generalize it though, so at least can float a couple of years. I'm going to maybe not have any phones. And then technology. We could have a remote scientific team. I'm trying to think of the lakes I've been in and around a lot. Oh, wow, yeah. I haven't used it for a story hook for at least a couple weeks, so maybe 3. But it's close to heart and into mind, and it is a lake, and it's a dying lake. Great Salt Lake. What would be the conflict with it? So I can at least put it in someplace familiar. Or I've been to the Finger Lakes. I've been to Minnesota. I've been to the Minnesota and Canadian border. There was lots of lakes there around that area. If I remember, was it Minnesota? Gosh, man. Time in life. But let's think of this other Great Salt Lake. I'm going to use that one because that one's really kind of interesting because it's a dying lake and they're trying to use technology, current day technology, to be able to get water into it rather than control their water use to grow grass and realize or not care about it. I think they're trying to pump in water from the ocean to fill it, which is using current technology to be able to do it. This is in the present. If this genre wasn't science fiction, I think I would be writing that story right now if it was like contemporary. Because that's a technology. The will is a technology. I'm going to have it be there, but I'm going to have some invented thing had happened today where they can somehow move water and not do a pipe or big, huge containers. Rather, they can move water by some technology, science fiction. Maybe they have a way to. Oh no, that would be when I'd be taking from. But I could take that. I'd give a shout out to Kurt Vonnegut. I honestly can't remember the name of it. It wasn't. It was the one where someone had. Some scientist had arranged something to be able to rearrange water molecules to freeze. And of course, the disastrous effect that everything's really made of water and how that affected and the driving of science. I think it was after, his player piano, I believe, was his first. But it was Kurt Vonnegut. It was fantasy science fiction with a moral story. Man, now I'm going to start thinking about Anyway, huge influence on my mind, so it's already tainted this. I'm going to use it. Absolutely. No, that's lifting way too much. That's literally, he wrote that book. Not figuratively. And I need to write a book. If this was flash fiction, I'd do it. But it's a novel of a first chapter. And it could trigger something like that. Man, I really want to use that. Because that's perfect. That's a solid story. That's already been written by a more popular as well as likely more historical than I will ever be. And in my mind, a lot better writer than I am in the way that he writes. But that's a lot of people. And likely many that are unpublished right now. But that's fine. I want to write this. I can't use freezing because I know that story already. If I didn't have read that book by Kurt Vonnegut, then or was it a short? I can't even remember. Let's do. Maybe make it. I don't want to alter. I'm gonna have to avoid altering the shape, but honestly, that is the easiest technology likely to have someone think they need to do. So maybe we could use those algae blooms. So someone's trying to find ways to transport water. And so the science fiction would be, it wouldn't be really science. I guess it's science fiction because they can't do it. They want to alter the gene. So instead of being like, I have a ray gun or I have some device that can alter the substance in some magical way, and it's a wand or it's a pill or it's this little round thing that touches something as a trigger. This is more of a process that seems like it's going to be good. I can't remember the purpose in the book why the scientist invented the thing. I think for the moral of that was the scientist was just thinking of ways to be able to do a thing. But I'm also probably mixing that up with player piano. I should stop talking about Kurt Vonnegut right now. I'm not going to get anything writing done if I keep doing that. All right, so now we can actually focus on this. I'm going to have it be like the algae bloom. And people are going to instead of what I was getting at in the past, instead of some object, this is gonna be like more bio. It'd be more like Oryx and Crake type fiction. The science fiction that, where we use science, possible science. I used to like to call it science prediction, with disaster effects, because we try to use technology to fix something that we don't necessarily need to fix if we were to just restrict ourselves from overconsumptions, better dispose of our stuff, and not consume as much as we want. Which I'm addicted to all those things, and I'm a hypocrite. I'm trying to be better. I'm trying. Most of the stuff I purchased this day is all used. I'll at least say that. Of course, I just happen to have a love of old Dungeons and Dragons and Atari 2600 games, so it's kind of hard to buy those things new, and I like the old ones too. Anyway, present lake technology, mini first, past tense science fiction novel first chapter. Okay, so we're going to do it with algae blooms. The first chapter is the idea, so we'll just say inspiration. And I think the inspiration, then I'm just going to write a quick outline so I can get this novel. Which will be algae. This is why I don't know how to spell algae. Maybe. Algebra. How do I spell that word? Where's my search and return engine? Oh, search and return engine. Give me a correct spelling. Okay. EA. No, it's AE. I was correct the first time. Or just A. The plural pronoun is ALGAE. So I was kind of right. And then I second guessed myself. Thank you, search and return engine, for validating something. It validates a lot too many times for too many people in too many different ways, the search engine. But algae blooms. So the inspiration will be algae blooms. And let's do it in I've literally hiked the place and I cannot. Oh my gosh, I want to use this place, lakes, but that doesn't have like nearly the heat, but then global like warming. We are having very drastic weather patterns. That's not going to change. And so this is also going to be the idea of the solution of it too. So, but then the incidents of it, I guess the middle of the book could go awry, and maybe by the end it gets resolved. Like, I guess in most, I don't want to say like again, but I have to say it in some context. In many of science fiction novels I have read, it's very dystopian, or just a little dystopian, but still dystopian. Player piano. I wish I knew the other one where water froze in the world. Oryx and Crake. Except, then this is one reason I really like Octavia Butler. Not that she couldn't go dystopian, but she also wrote a series of novels that kind of took that and turned it around into more of a utopia. Never was able to finish the third one, I think, unfortunately, but I read the first and the second. I read the second one first. It was The Sorrows. Again, let's get that name because I got to Harvester. Octavia, what was that series? So many good series. Oh man, that's one writer to be jealous of. Anyway, let's get on this. I'm going to start thinking about her stories now too. And I don't need to have all three of those writers inside of my mind right now if I want to get this done. Algae blooms in the way that I want to write it. So algae blooms in Minnesota lakes. We'll just say that. I'm trying to think of the specific reserve, but that eludes my mind right now. Algae blooms in the Minnesota. I need to find that out. I think that's what Minnesota lakes near. What is that place called? Yeah, because I've been in that area. I mean, I've literally hiked in that area. Boundary Waters. Yes. Yes. That place is cool. And that place is where the algae blooms in Boundary Waters. I even like the way that sounds. Man, if you ever go to Boundary Waters, it's pretty cool. There's lots of mosquitoes certain times of year. Lots of mosquitoes. Some places they would you'd hear it, and then 10 minutes later, even wearing masks and the highest DEET repellent you can possibly have. The only thing you could do is go inside your tent. Those that wanted to sleep outside did not. Algae blooms in Boundary Waters. So I've also been there, so I'll be able to fictionalize about this a lot more because I don't have to lie that much. Just a little. The science fiction part. So algae blooms in Boundary Waters. And an idea to I think the way the first chapter is going to be how the algae, and this is going to be difficult. I don't know if, I got an hour and 38 minutes left. How the chemicals got in there, how the state got in there, and the person ended up observing, and it's through the person's thoughts. And it'll start with, I've got an idea how to save the world and make money. Middle of the chapter, it gets disastrous. It gets out of hand. But they do find a way. I think, but I don't want it to be through science. I don't want science to have science. I'd like to be able to have that effect of balance. Let's not try to invent yet another thing that consumes something in one way so we can think it has, benefits another way. And this way is what I'm thinking is that they noticed this algae bloom and it's taken, and I've seen pictures of this thing. It was in Ireland recently, so I'm lifting that. It's not fiction. It's something that's happening. But I can put the science fiction as this person's found a way to sort of maybe gellify that even more. So maybe a little bit of the Kurt Vonnegut ice thing, making water into ice automatically. Through rearrangement somehow of molecules. Shapes, or I don't know, I have to read that story again, and it's not going to be right now, but somehow makes it gel, and this gel solidifies, and so this person conceives, and one of the things they've also invented is this sort of container. So what they're thinking of doing is taking, this is not a bad idea, taking and somehow getting existing algae blooms in the ocean, multiplying them and grow real fast. And so that's kind of the science fiction, is they're going to be able to grow this real fast and alter it as well to maybe make it this pure form of waste and carbon. Okay. And then once it's in that form, it still have the same mass and weight. Of course, it's still going to be heavy as hell, but it won't drip or fall. It's solid, and so they can literally lift the whole structure out. If you have a certain flight path, and then, this is, yes, lots of fiction. So the science fiction would be the efforts to be able to get this to happen. It has to be present day, though. You could ship it then. You could ship that huge algae bloom close, and then you could ship it on truck. So ship it on ocean boat, put it into vehicles, and transport it that way, or fly it if necessary. And so then you could get it at this lake. And so, I mean, I could fictionalize about my understanding of both these lakes, actually, where this person gets the idea of using this to their advantage, as well as maybe saving the environment, at least in their mind, with technology. And that's always, sometimes has disastrous effects. And maybe I could try to change my attitude toward this, and that's this story particularly right here. Maybe technology does help, but it just needs to be tweaked just a little bit. And so there is a disastrous middle chapter, but then they learned constraint. And maybe the disaster happens once they start to actually overdo it, overconsume, and think it's the best thing to go and do to solve not only the energy problem, the water problem, and trying to go to a renewable resource. So the idea is this person gets an idea that seizing the algae blooms inside this lake, is a scientist gonna, or is not gonna be a scientist? Hell no. Is going to be a venture capitalist who's not stupid and just is kind of had the luxury to know things and has the luxury to have money. I don't know. That's why that's why I have to now start building up as this character. It's going to be a venture capitalist from the point of view of that. That way, it's the epitome of raw capitalism. And I mean that because they're taking a whole bunch of money on an idea and investing in it, hoping to reach more money than, they would if they were to try to slowly build something. High risk, high reward. And in my mind, that's just pure capitalism. And you need money to do that. And I'm going to make this... Like if I made it like most venture capitalists, well, I wouldn't say venture capitalists, a lot of the people who have been able to invent multi-billion-dollar corporations currently came from a money background. They had some luxury and they had at least initial investment in them, but they also had an idea. Let's not take away what they've done with what they were given, and they multiply that 100-fold. But there's a lot of ridicule toward that idea. But you need money to be able to actually start to make money and invent things. That's just life in our society. That's not going to change unless we write this novel that will make that change. So, do I want to? Who's my audience? I think my audience, honestly, is I want them to like this. So this person actually just knows things, is old too. I want to make them old. It'll be easier for me to fictionalize that too. So let's go like round 30. I'm doing first person. I got to know this person. I'm going to write them. They find the algae in boundary waters and the idea to create a bioengineered algae to be able to solidify water, not freeze it. So I'm not totally ripping off Kurt Vonnegut. And transport it and an idea to bioengineer algae to be able to soak up water, solidify. Oh geez, like I'm thinking of multiple ways to use this idea. Do steam as well as the actual burning of the thing itself. So this is going to be really cool bioengineered algae, and this is just the idea. And it could be present because the rapid turnaround to be able to get something, and it's going to be all underground. They're not going to be. This is going to be sort of the. Oh God, I don't want to quote that book, but I just thought of it in my mind, so I have to say it out loud because I'm going to start thinking of it. Is Atlas Shrugged. I've never read the book. I've seen the movies because I never wanted to read the book. That's way too many words, and I just don't have the time for it. And I've talked with too many people about it, and it just sounded, and it was ridiculous. But I get it. I understand the hopes and the dreams of the free market. This would answer all this. This would literally be that if this protagonist succeeds, if capitalism succeeds its purest form in this novel, it would be like a justification or some rewritten Atlas Shrugged. Would I be happy with that? Yeah, I mean it's plausible, but it's always, I don't know. Let's not justify that, but I guess so. Maybe that's how it, wait, no, that's why it's the middle of the book, when all things go bad. Then the second half of the book is the realization about sharing it and not over consuming it, and then maybe doing right by the money that'll be given to you. I mean, something like that is probably a little bit balanced. So it's not that idea of putting in some false. It's false. We can't start consuming. We just can't do it forever. There's only so much. It's going to run out at some point in time. Unless, of course, they say, let's go mine those asteroids, right? And given that, if you actually have halfway through the book some kind of socialist idea balance out the capitalism, because that's kind of what's going to happen to this character is they get carried away and greedy, and they're going to just go outside the boundaries of law. They're going to go just do it on rogue, pure Ayn Rand. Let's go to this island, invent this mystical thing that can power everything forever. If you say these 3 words, it gets destroyed. Nothing crazy like that. But using technology that could logically exist. Like, we're that smart right now. We're also that disastrous. So taking that idea and halfway it crumbles. So let's start thinking of chapters, because I only got an hour and 28 minutes left. And I've been talking a lot about other words that have already been written on like this. So I'm going to write inspiration is what the writing is going to be. And it's going to be first person. And I got to build up this character in the mind, and I can push out words. Let's see if I can, at least. I don't know how they'll read at the end. Algae blooms in boundary waters, and the idea to create a bioengineered algae is able to soak up in water and solidify. Let's write out the whole thing, because this will be the beginning of the second chapter. What's the idea? Oh, wow. And I think it's, it's bullshit, but that's called fiction. You got to make it believable. Algae blooms, and the more nonfiction you know, the better you'll be off. Algae, to be able to soak up water, solidify for transport to power plants that can burn the algae to heat let's see, so it would be the steam from the water that burns from the algae that powers it. And then I want something like the ash or the sludge that remains, because it would still go down, be also able to be burned like coal. So you have this like drastic difference things. You got the initial condension, getting the water out of the algae, you could burn it. It's science, right? It's science fiction. This algae can do that. It somehow traps the water, and then it can combust, and steam can come out. And then that steam could just power things, right? Through, I think it's turbines. I don't honestly know how a steam engine works or how they would distribute it, but there's energy and power that happens with steam. This is what's happening in this novel. And then once it actually burns out, this algae gets into something like coal that you could actually then burn off for the way you make things from coal. Heat, power, energy. There we go. And then you also deliver water to a location. So you're delivering energy, a combustible energy, in 2 different forms to be able to get the water that you could then transport to that region. That's the idea that starts the book. And it starts from algae blooms and boundary waters. Okay, that could be cool. That'd be a fun book to write. I won't ever. I got too many things to edit and try to get independently published so I can get other validation. I think that's what we all seek, right? In some way. We have to remind ourselves we're alive. Algae blooms and algae water is a solidify transport that can burn it to steam, water, to create energy while transporting the water to a location. And I think I'll be able to fictionalize pretty quickly, I hope. I got an hour and 24 minutes left, the first chapter, because I'm going to use just things I know. I've known through experience, life. And if you experience something, you're going to be able to define it a hell of a lot better than if you just read it. To create energy while transporting the water to a location. Okay. Then the leftover sludge burns hot like coal. I think the second chapter will be selling it. It'll be just like this discursive story of how he finds the people that does the scientists to get in, the money, the doing it, and all in a short time through really different channels. I got to think of how this person knows these people too. I think we've already decided. I'll roll gender. I got age because I want to at least match my age. It'll give me at least a little bit easier to fictionalize, like if this gender is not male. It's non-binary. I usually do 1, 2 male, 3, 4 female, and 5, 6 doesn't matter. I'll put it that way. And then 4, just do it without the call out the gender. And I'll justify that usually within the story. It kind of makes it fun. The reason it's done in here is maybe because of the person, but more sense because it's just this idea of the singularity of the species and not so much having to split it apart and how it just affects everything. So if I can help and have more people maybe identify this with this person. It's science fiction too. It's science. Like there's just one species in the round of everything. As far as like culture, where they came from, I think I'm just going to try to make an American mutt, because that's familiar to me at least. I know more American mutts than anything else. I think everybody's an American mutt too. I mean, in this day and age, just deal with it. You're an American mutt. Mutts live longer. There are more resistance to disease and bullshit. All right. So this is going to be the, what would be like the buy-in. Let's use terms that you'd use if you're trying to get someone to do something for you. And we'll just call it the process of, what are we going to call this? The process of getting the scientist, I want to know this so I know where I can write to and what this person thinks and knows. And I got to know the outline so I can set up the chapters that follow to enable the story to connect and actually have some way to conclude it. The process of getting the scientist, I'm talking way too much. Process of getting the scientist, the funder. The distributor. And the ocean land. And the ocean. I say operator. I think I like operator. And the operator. So the process of getting the scientist to fund the distributor and the operator. I don't know what the operator. I'm just thinking like the captain. The captain? Yeah, that makes it interesting. And maybe I can leave this hint with at the end of the first chapter. not necessarily what it is, but say like, oh, now I need to start the process of getting the scientist to fundraise with the distributor and the capitalist and the captain, because you got to go out to the ocean. And in the first chapter here for inspiration, we have the algae blooms. We've decided that's actually going to probably start the second chapter, I think. Anyway, let's go to the third chapter, and let's think of the number of chapters, and I can start the time boxes, because we're only got an hour and 20 minutes left. I want to start writing the thing that I need to actually write to read aloud in 20 minutes. So, the buy-in, the creation, the use, maybe? The use? The implementation. I'm going to treat this actually like, because it'll make it easier for me too, like you're developing, you're codifying biology, so I'm going to make this like it's source code. And there would be source code that would be able to would crunch this data anyway, so that's not too far from it's the ability to actually crunch the data that allows this to happen, the measurement. So let's treat it as such. So the implementation, the test run, let's just call it test run. And we're going to put it as one word, like you're typing in a command prompt. Never forget, you want to make it easy for yourself. Right where you know. If this would have been flash fiction, it would not be this deep as well. It would be a lot quicker, more discursive. Hopefully just like one of these chapters. It's always good if you can create a chapter seem like it's a story within itself. So we have the creation, the test, when they're the failure. What's after failure? So this would be the middle of the chapter. If I had randomly got middle chapter, I'd be writing about the failure right now. This is not. I'm only going to have less chapters to begin than to end for this one. So it takes us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to get to failure. I want up to 10. I want to do 9. Maybe we can make someone a cat lover or something and make the number of 9 chapters representative cats. Got 9 lives. Revision. No. What do you do after revision? They go socialist. They go a little socialist. And not consume. And truly conservative. And not consume. It could be, the story of there's this great invention that gives us energy and transports water to places that are needed. But at the same time, it's just re-releasing all this stuff into the atmosphere, where technically it was kind of a place that could be safe. Maybe this could actually consume that too. Oh, I have to work that angle in. Oh, wait a second. That makes sense. Now I know why. Now I know logically why that would happen, and I could work it into the science. I got to write this down because this is not a stupid idea. It may be, maybe. It's not a very stupid idea. So I might as well write it down. Even if it was a very stupid idea, I'd still write it down. So the idea would be that the algae, I want to build up this thing, can also, is like a filter. So it goes down into the sludge because it's capturing all of the maybe carbon and waste that we dump into the ocean. What they don't realize is that there's so much of it that's what makes it get out of hand. That's what drives it crazy. They underestimate the amount of waste and trash that we humans have created in an environment that's just not built off dealing with our use of the things we kill. And the middle of the chapter is where they realize that failure, and that's the failure. The test run is they do it. And they think they've got it, maybe the container that contains it, because not only is it holding the algae in, but it's preventing it from leaving. They suspect that we have. So they are concerned about it. But to what degree, they don't truly understand, because they think the place around is, if it breaks, they could at least contain it, and they can't. So it gets out of hand. It gets loose. Well, then how do you stop it? Like the revision, I mean, that would be sort of a modern day version of that Kurt Vonnegut story I was talking about earlier, which name I can't remember, and I just don't have time to look up. And I would think about that way more than I want to, because I need to write something soon, and I got to think how this thing ends. I want to know how this thing ends. And I can write a better beginning. At least that's how I write. Everyone does it different. And they're all right. So revision, go to a little socialist and truly conservative and not consume, because the spreading is slow, but won't stop. The spreading is slow enough that if they stop and slow down consuming wastes, or find a better way to dispose and recycle, I mean, I think it's all of it, right? Then it may stop it. 9, people do. People slow it down and stop it by not consuming. I think there's going to have to be a chapter 10, though. Maybe you can go a little biblical on this and like be the 10 Commandments, But then you'd have to read the 10 Commandments and shape them in order, and you make each one of these about some commandment, and I don't want to get there. I don't want to connect it to anything like that, so I may go 13. No, then that's unlucky. 11? Let's just do 10 and say because it's a decimal value. We could do this now. I've already done detective store and binary. I wouldn't go there again. People slow it down and stop by not consuming. So 9 would be like people die. There will be a tragedy. It's going to happen. I just think there's a value. I remember listening to C-SPAN had some people from National Review talking, and one was an economist. I wish I remember the individual's name, but that economist was stating that he's not too concerned about it, and they realized there could be some mass die-off, but it's going to happen. And people will adjust and find a way to survive after it. And I think it was in relation to like the death of the grizzly bear. And he connected it to like, well, it's sometimes in the conservative point of view that that's going to happen, but if that's happened, it's our own doing. I think it's possible maybe a little libertarian, one of those people that live in a fiction. I guess we all do, though. We still only tell ourselves. So we're going to have people die. I don't need to get too much into details. It'd be a tough chapter to probably write, and I don't want to think about that right now. But I don't think that's the way people react. Even in this society with the amount of information and how we're getting numb to anything, that even death doesn't pause much this day. Violent death, murder, rape, yeah. What do you call it after you got that failure when it's the post-mortem. Yes, 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 yes. Let's just use things I know to move on to the next thing that can get done. What time is it? Hour and 10 minutes. Okay. I got inspiration, the creation, the implementation, test run, failure, postmortem, revision. People die. I think that should be the people. That is going to be the name of the chapter. People live by not consuming so much. I don't think I'll have it be this, but I'm going to have it as a tentative title. People die. People live by not consuming. That's a story I think I'd want to write someday. I would maybe, well, that's another discussion right now, because AI is getting in my mind, and I'd probably name drop it in the story. And it's present day. Like, I mean, I get that. Of course, I'm doing my own stuff with my own data set, so that wouldn't be unfictional, but I don't want this, I don't know, let's see here. I got an hour, 9 minutes left, and I got to write a first chapter. But I got a character who's just going to do it non-binary. Be what you want it to be in this case, and not very, yeah. It's first person too, and I want more people to potentially feel attached to this character and let people attach a little bit of their own identity to it. And it's really hard to write non-binary in that people automatically assume they is mini. So you really have to, it's not hard, you just have to be careful, unless you want it that way, which sometimes you do, and it's kind of cool. And I'm going to do that here. I think I'm going to play with that a little bit. So it brings the idea of everybody's, I think is what I could show through that, and actually make it even more meaningful, is that it is that concept of, like, in this sense, both ways. Like, this person doesn't see themselves as, they see themselves through this creation. And so they themselves in this instance sees their own reflection. Let's not to identify with my own self. And that'll be a hard disconnect too. It really will. Only because, like, all these non-fiction things I'm using will be from my personal experience. And then I'm going to have to abstract that to make sure it's, not through my male identity into this person who is even more pure thought than myself. And I'm not that pure thought. So I guess it wouldn't be that hard. But this person is. They're kind of beyond the body a little bit. But they do have a sense of other people around them. They clenched. Past tense. What's that past tense? I got to reread this. Let's at least see if it meets parameters of the Stochastic Fiction Game. Got an hour and 6 minutes left. The story element, setting time present, setting place lake, conflict technology. Point of view first, tense, past tense, genre, science fiction, format, novel first chapter. And I got to write the first chapter. I don't know the name of the book. Algae Blooms and Boundary Waters. I like that name. It's the name. because that would be so different than anything I've ever named a novel. That's just not how I name my novels of as late or ever stories, anything. Like maybe a few, maybe the I Am and Your stuff, but nah, I like that name. So the novel name, that is happenstance, through experience and remembering. In the stochastic fiction game, I would not have had this thought and gone here without setting up these random parameters. It's kind of fun. Inspiration. Okay, buy-in. So we're doing inspiration. So I'm still going to probably write in the pattern, but it's first person. So I can't do so. So it wouldn't really matter. Like, how can I have that hook in? I really want to get the they into it somehow. I want that whole idea of civilization in this character. I wonder if I can write this. Maybe I just write it without the I. Until maybe the end or something. I think I did that last time, though, with the second person. But this would be legit. Like, and they're just thoughts. So I could even find a different, better pattern than I normally, where I was going right now. Where I'm going right now is my comfort zone, my subject, verb, object, sentence. I prefer present tense. I wrote a lot of stuff in it, and I'm halfway decent and really good after a lot of editing and it going through review with other writers and editors and people sometimes I want to talk with. All that said, I want to write this different than I want the same. I say that out loud just to state that I'm going to try to write it as if this person's thoughts through other people, and maybe they see themselves as they. I'll still do it this way. That's weird. Treat it like an entire process. I mean, I've written like that anyway, but they would fit in this. It'd be a comfort zone, and I only got an hour and 3 minutes left, so I'm going to try to throw a unique narrative in this somehow. I still feel like I'm writing a different pattern than I'm not used to. Algae and boundary water. Yeah, I don't use a lot of similes, and for some reason I want to use a simile right now. Maybe this person thinks in similes, and those similes you can translate into code and memory models, something. I don't know. We're gonna have to use a machine somehow. I feel like he does the model. I just automatically connected this person with me. They. I gotta start saying they. It's odd that. Well, it's not that odd actually. The amount of time I think about myself. Well, all the thoughts I have in my head are about myself because I generate them for my own self, not like anyone else makes them. They definitely help. They do make the signal, the input. They grasp the algae and boundary waters like flour. Not like flour, like flour in a plastic bag. I mean, I've never gripped this, but I'm just going to make believe that this is what this algae is like. This is maybe a mutated algae that I'm making up that because of the warming in the lake. There was a heat wave, and there are chemicals in it. I mean, there's not. It's pretty damn clean. It's pretty good wetland. Maybe it just shows that there had been someone did dump chemicals into it. Yes. That'd be sacrilege. It'd be illegal too, if not mistaken. But someone has. Is that their person? No, they're just portaging. I think it's called portaging, if I remember right. And come upon one of the lakes, the ones that the last lake, whether where they put you in or take you out, or where I got put in and took out. One was not that big. I think the one getting put in, I don't know where it is. I'd probably reference it specifically somehow. I should. I don't necessarily need to do it in the first chapter. Only got an hour left. I got to write more than talk. They gassed algae in boundary waters like flour in a bag. That popped through. Nope. I'm not having someone think of themselves in they in their thoughts in their own head. Let's get that pattern down at least. No simile. This person does not think in simile. The algae. Maybe. So I need to say this out loud so maybe I can even hear myself and understand more why I want to do the they. I don't want to use the I, for one. Two, I do want this person to have their own thoughts but think of themselves in that form, in their own mind. They feel like they're also magnanimous, I suppose. Very important. You always would have to if you're referring yourself into as almost as a third person instead of the I. But it could also be, yeah, I'm going to leave it. I'm going to write the patterns as it is right now. I think this person probably, that's what I could use actually. Wow. No, that's it. I think I'd be able to, I don't need a whole lot of words, and I'm not certain I could start to give details of how a thought connects back to something like an idea, and that's how each chapter would be. I think this person thinks of themselves in third person, and their ideas and thoughts have been trained to speak in subject, verb, object sentences. So it's, and I'm going to just use this because it's pop culture right now. Would it be science fiction then? Yes, it would, because of the accelerated rate. Where's the science fiction? The science fiction, I guess, is in the. Because this is not. Like, I almost need that laser beam. Oh, man. And it's supposed to take place in a lake, and it does. It starts in Boundary Waters and ends in the Great Salt Lake. And those are the two test beds. And those are the two places. The ocean is the Earth's lake. I'll convince myself of that. Maybe I should change that parameter to body of water and make it a little bit easier. I forgot about that. So there are lakes and boundary waters. There are lakes. The Great Salt Lake is a lake, and that's the idea. And that's going to be processed out into buy-in. So this will be the definition, like a process of how it works and what the process along the way attracts. And so this is going to end. Oh man, I don't know if I can write this in time. I spent way too much thinking about abstract stuff in other people's writings. I haven't really thought about having to write. The algae slimes through fingers. Clumps of algae plop into the algae muck. The algae quivers. No similes, no metaphors. this is the process. That's how I'm going to do it. So this would be a paragraph. This is the process. The algae slimes through fingers. And then what happens? Clumps of algae plops into the muck. The algae muck. I see that spelled wrong. The algae quivers. And then you do things like the algae smells. They smell. And you could almost, maybe the reader right here by now may not know what the they is, but maybe loosely will connect the they with the algae up there. And then we can have what the algae smells like, but it's really the singular person thinking themselves in the third person to almost continually generalize their existence, to be able to maybe talk better to this agency that it has. It's easy to conceive of having, to be able to create something similar if you had enough data. They smell, what does it smell like? Clumps of algae plop in muck. Fumes of rot and bleach. Well, what would that even... God, man, writing without metaphor and simile is hard at times. I mean, you don't want to overdo it because then it gets really annoying, but I'd be dropping too many similes right now. I mean, maybe they do. Maybe they're more poetic, and that's the way they get away with it. Don't make it easier to write this. We have 53 minutes left. They smell fumes rot. Fumes of rot float from plops. From algae plops. No stings. Body quivers. Head goes faint. Not head. Let's not identify the physical body. Oh, I got nose. I got body quivers. Mind floats. Mind floats. It's not so much your head. This is when it starts getting into you. Mind floats. Now this person is recalling something. So now we have a narrative where this person recalls something. So they would be the way that they reference themselves in the I and their mind to distance themselves and detach themselves from the body to try to be able to get to better understand how to communicate with this coded agency. They've had enough data to train it as such, and they've also talk and think to codify it, much like Arthur C. Clarke wrote about. It was HAL. That's how HAL was programmed and deprogrammed. "2001: Space Odyssey." They smell fumes of rot float from algae plops, nose stinks, body quivers, mind floats. See, that was more science fiction because, you know, there were so many different, I don't know, this is not science fiction. Not anymore. I mean, yeah. Enough money. That's all you need now. Something like this, at least. I'm sure the chemists could imagine or are doing this already or trying this already somewhere or someplace. I wonder if that patent's been filed already. Probably. So I want to start to detail where they're at. I got to get the environment. Like we got the algae, we got the shivers. How about this? Let's follow the quivers of algae. And I'll get the lake name. Spread from the boat dock of some lake, some boat dock lake in Boundary Waters. I'm just gonna put this all. 49 minutes. I ain't gonna put a label on it. Like let's not go there. I don't want to think about it. The quivers of algae spread from the boat dock. Is it a boat dock or is it a boat ramp? It's a boat ramp. The canoe boat ramp. To the shores. I don't whether conifers or deciduous pine trees. I've got no. I can't even. There was just lots of everything. Definitely, all the lily pads there are going to be dead. Trees. I'm going to do a search and return engine thing on here. What type of trees are there? I want to get a little. Yes. Okay, so what type of. What kind of trees are those? I remember seeing lots of trees. And I wasn't one to study places I go. Maybe I should. Then I'd have that in my back pocket to be able to fictionalize. Yeah, there's lots of numbers of lakes. What trees? Trees. Just give me some of these tree names. Let's just say trees. Shores and trees rising to the sky. They don't know. This person's gonna know. Like that's one thing that I feel like. No, they don't need to know. The only thing that they need to know is to be able to have the model that would be able to know because they have some geolocation of this person, they have some prior historical data of this person. They themselves are allowing themselves, and maybe this is their narrative out loud, sort of like I'm doing with writing. Let's do that. So the quivers of algae spread from the boat canoe ramp to the shores and trees rising to the sky. And maybe they get a little bit more poetic as it starts to load in their mind. Because it's just a slow process of talking to the machine. And then they reset. Their hand. Algae slime. Man, this is too much like the detective store. I've already wrote that book. I don't need to write the story again. But there's a limited amount of time. Maybe I could just write it different. I was really strict in that. Constraints. I don't know how it even turned out. I loved it at one point in time. Sometimes I question. The water washes away. The algae slime stains. We'll make it like a red. I don't even give this algae clump. Let's give it red. Clumps of red. The red algae. Would definitely give it a color. Like that'd be a sense. That's a sight. The red algae slime. I spelled that wrong. Slime through fingers. Clumps of algae plop in the... Let's get caught up in syntax. You're going to be doing yourself, but I got to stop. Algae plops, the algae muck, and the algae quivers. Let's learn. They smell. Fumes of rot float from the algae. Plops. No stinks. Body quivers. Mine floats. The quivers of algae spread from the canoe boat ramp to the shores and trees, rising to the sky. Rising to sky. If I use a lot of articles, or shouldn't I? Do I use articles when I think in my own mind? Well, if I were to get really good at writing, I'd still want to use articles because they at least help define the thing and the importance of it. And this person knows that. Uses it once in a while, but not all the time. The water washes away algae. I like it in this sentence. Red stain remains. Maybe by the time they get back to the house, that this agency has reached out to be able to contact and at least form ways to be able to make this a little bit more actionable. And then you need that reinforcement learning when you put it back into the model to then be able to see if you want to execute it and do it. I'm just thinking this character is now going to start leaving. And I also have to know the fact that the place smells like some chemical, like gas or fuel, like fuel bleach, but I can't use metaphor or simile. The person doesn't think like that. They're just not there for it. So the water washes away algae, a red stain remains. It smells like and maybe just to call out a statement, like one would be thinking it, the dumping. The dumped, and I got to do past tense. I've already failed that. Oh, I always default to present. I got to change this because I want to read this aloud. I don't want to be too messed up. And I got 42 minutes left. So clumps of algae plopped. I just want to get these in a couple places. So at least when I read it aloud, they smelled. Fumes of rot floated. I got to think in how the past tense works. Maybe because this is, I don't know. No stunk. No stung. Body quivered. One floated. Mine floated. Sure. Spread from the canoe boat ramp to the shores and streets. The water washed away. It feels. I like it better present. And I guess but it's past tense. And stained remains. Stain remains. Gasoline and bleach smells. And that's another thing that I think this person just is using the they form in their own mind just to sort of better connect with the agency it's connecting to, as well as it is almost also treating it like a data collecting machine. This would be the science fiction. I won't say the Neuralink necessarily. This person doesn't need it. I'd love to be able to make this all dialogue. And maybe it should be. I think it should be. It'll be awkward dialogue. Because how would I, that old school, if you go into the next paragraph, that's to me awkward as day is long. But I'm going to go with this pattern. It'll make it quicker too to be able to do everything. And this is going to be, I think that's the proper way to do it. I can't remember at this point in time, so I'm going to do it right now. I don't want to use the detective store. Oh, that would be really helpful right now. I think I might. Let's just go with this dialogue. So starting the dialogue, we're going to have this. Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. I like this even better. And then what do they connect? And it's the dialogue. This is the idea of they connect, the smells connect. Connect they. And name. I'm just going to put name lake. Well, at least I can say that out loud, and maybe it'll sound like a real thing when I do. Read this. The smells connect they. The news of illegal dumping of chemicals in lake and name lake. The investigation recovered recalled the investigation recovered years of dumping chemicals. The Psychonex. The heat waves over boundary waters. The algae bloomed. Maybe it's all in past tense because I gotta think of the reason for the tense. I mean I don't have to, but it's always fun for me at least. They connected. Past tense. I'm gonna read this aloud at least halfway decently right. What time is it? 36 minutes left. What time is it? Okay. The heat waves over boundary waters. The algae bloomed. The algae bloomed. Where are we at? I want this to be a decently long chapter, but I don't think it will be for today. The site connected the heat waves over boundary water. The algae bloomed, killing lily pads. Algae gelled. I'm like not even thinking of the word gelled right now. I'm just gonna move on though. A company finds $1 billion. truck, the pickup truck. Let's get this down, connected, home. You know, there's the truck, but damn it, if it's a pickup truck, hell, let's just not even have a truck. And if you don't know what pickup is, they do. Sit in the pickup. How rudimentary is it? They're a little paranoid, and they like engines. So this has actually got a. Is it gas powered? Whoa. No, it's not. Well, that's a good question. Would they even? Do I need to write it in? I should write it in. With 34 minutes left, though, come on. What's the? How does this end? Like, how does this chapter end? I get the story, but so the next chapter is the action upon it. It's the thought. It's going to be this thought right here, and I know how to make a lot of money on it. This is how I made a lot of money on it. Maybe it's got to start with the money. I can make money from this. Yes. There we go. I mean that, I mean the grotesqueness I kind of like, but that's a better hook, especially what the book's about. And so the hook, and this is how I'm going to make money from it, and then that's the second chapter, and that's how it ends. Yeah. I don't know. Does it have to be that long given the time? It's not going to be. I'm going to leave that at the opening of the first chapter. I should just dump it right there with the inspiration. And this is just, I can put this literally right here and we see how far we can write. And this is how they can make money. This is how they made money. And that would also kind of go into the whole idea about this venture capitalist process is have to have serious buy-in with a bunch of people who, at the end of the day, they're probably going to end up hating each other, and maybe they're going to be rich and maybe they're going to be poor. But they'll be probably hated a little bit too because of what they consider. I mean, isn't that the whole basis of Moby Dick? At least that's what I've understood. At least led to understood, and seems to be factual. And the more I find out, yeah, the history of a time and how a lot of economists see it as like the ultimate. It's capitalist, venture capitalist whaling. They sit up in the pickup, and this is how they made me. This is how they made money from it. Made lots of money. I mean, I guess at least the openings in the lake. I don't, if I was truly, I'll probably fail at that. I should start rating myself to see if I'm truly doing what I do when I rate myself before I read it aloud. As one should. I mean, you might as well be more critical to yourself than anyone else. But find those people who you feel can be really, really critical. But you also respect enough to take the criticism. It's hard. The smells connect. The news of illegal dumping of chemicals in named lake recalled. The investigation recovered years of dumping chemicals. The site connected the heat waves over boundary waters, the algae bloom killing lily pads, the algae jailed, the company fined $1 billion, the company went bankrupt. They sit and pick up drives. road bumps, pickup wiggles. Maybe this is the last person who also. Maybe we're going to include the whole the chip idea because that's total. That's we'll see. Um, the Neuralink or whatever brain implant. I write Jaded, which is a book about the idea that AI is currently being processed in people's minds, and it's the blogs of them. So I've read a lot of them, really interested in this technology as well as the science fiction behind it. I'm going to make a science fiction here, but this person refuses to have a brain input. And that's going to be part of the character. I got to make note. Main character. I should have took these notes. I spoke them a lot. I mean, I take transcript of what I talk, but I should have took them down more discreetly and wrote them out. I could add them as character features to fill in this last 20 minutes was actually words for the story, which I should be writing right now. Thoughts jostle. I could write it into the story right now. I just forgot what I was going to write anyway. All the better. So they sit in the pickup drives, road bumps, pickup wiggles. Thoughts jostle. Okay. I could put it on the edge of something. Algae burns. I'm murdering the spelling of algae as many ways as one can in this day. I'm going to go with that one right there and stick with it. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. Thoughts jostle, algae burns, algae held water. Ah, man, the past tense. I have difficulty doing it. Thoughts jostled. They sat in the pickup. I got to read this right. I got 27 minutes left. I can call this a short entry to a novel and then feel a little bit justified, but it hurt my soul if I honestly left these in past tense. Because I'd truly be failing then. I can at least talk my way into having this be a first chapter. And maybe read my way into it too. So thoughts jostle, algae burn, algae held water. Energy powers the vehicle. Okay. So this would be the person who doesn't want Neuralink but has a good enough data set to structure an AI. And maybe that I got to write that down. Algae held water battery. Main character won't do. I got to write that down because that's a big plot. That could be a thing. That's a science fiction-y thing. Won't take a Neuralink or a brain chip. We'll call it. And talks out loud. And so this would be a hard read. I mean, if you could read it well enough, but still, if you feel these sort of constraints, a reader is going to be like, "Oh, come on, just throw in a simile, maybe. Lighten up. Let me imagine the story a little bit." Batter. I got some batter. No, I got battery. Battery powers the vehicle. And fuels. Power the battery. And maybe there could be something about the whole carbon capturing that they want to do as well. Maybe that's what they capture in the ocean is the carbon and it just cuts loose. So where would the carbon come? Oh, it's just the algae here gives the idea. It's where the genesis happens. And he starts talking aloud to this agency that instead of having a brain implant, because everybody's got his brain implants are the thing, this person doesn't. And, but, and other people don't. It's not like you're that special. But you're also, less connected, supposedly. You have to do things the old way. If you're like one of those historical narratives, in 10 years, people will be like, this is the past. That wasn't science fiction. Wasn't even a good story. It's 24 minutes left. Oh, so body powers the vehicle, fuels power the battery. I gotta throw in the Great Salt Lake somehow, because that's the connecting point. That's the other lake. That's all justified. This story is about lakes. If I got two lakes and just one ocean, then it's about lakes because there's two lakes. And this other lake's gonna be the Great Salt Lake. Power batteries. Okay, they jostled. Thoughts jostled. Wait. We act like this has already happened too, so that's why it's even more science fiction. It's in the present day, so that's why it's even better being in past tense. So it's always going to be behind. At least justify why when it goes into reality that it'll feel like it was at least trying to predict something 5 years away. Thoughts jostled, algae burned, algae held water, Great Salt Lake needed water. Battery powers the vehicle, fuels power the battery. All right, is that justifiable? No. But let's see if we can add it. Let's see if we can just do a trick of making this. This is just way short. This is a cop out. A little bit. Man, like, I don't know. Huh. I can make money from this. They grasped the algae in boundary waters. The red algae slimed through fingers. Clumps of algae plopped in the algae muck. The algae muck quivered. This might be right. This might be enough. This might be enough for my mind right now. I've thought about way too many different words in this today. That's what talking out loud gets you. Sometimes it seems like bullshit. Fumes of rot floated from the algae plops. Okay. I can make money from this. I mean, you have the setup, you have the end. If this was a short enough chapter, at least intrigue the person and go to the next. The next would be quite long, I would imagine. Because you can get the buy-in. I want all the buy-in in one chapter. I don't want to have, like, chasing around the world. Like, this person's has an agency that I don't, and that's, I mean, I got to tell that story just a little bit, because that's going to be, let me fill in some gaps here. Postmortem. You finally find out what happens here. The narrative changes to the eye. After the narrative and the the programming of their talk, their agency, needs to not be used, to be shut down. They start talking. Or maybe this is the narrative from the day to the eye. Because you can still identify yourself as an I. In this case, the person actually disconnects. And they were referring themselves into they, just to disconnect their mind, their body from mind. Their body from mind. Their thoughts, I suppose, is what I meant to say. The narrative of the name of. Their narrative of they thinking to an I after the talking narrative of the person programming their talk to an agency that was acting as the orchestrator of all the achievements and profit earned by the I. They need to be shut down after the person stops talking and starts thinking in the I and begins speaking. We are 17 minutes left. My mind is burnt out a little bit, but that's writing. Okay. Let's go ahead. I think I have enough story for a first chapter. It's going to be short. It's going to be sweet. It's going to be something. I can honestly say I would have never thought of this story else if not playing this game. And I feel a little bit, that's a short first chapter. I don't know. Short, long first chapter, I would say. Chapters I'm used to, it's a short one. Maybe not chapters of authors I spoke of today, this afternoon, this morning, but rather ones that I remember the most. And therefore, I suppose they have some more ranking in my mind, and therefore that's why I remember them. Favorite in ranking, I suppose. But with all that, and with time being what it is in life, well, things do come to a stop, so we can proceed with other things. Let's go ahead and review the story elements. Setting time present, setting place lake, conflict technology, characters mini, point of view first, tense past tense, genre, science fiction, format novel first chapter. Because it's a novel first chapter, we have to figure out the novel. Let's go through the novel. There are 10 chapters, inspiration. The algae blooms the boundary waters and the inspiration for the actual invention. Then the buy-in. Then the creation, the implementation, the test run, the failure, the post-mortem, where this narrative that is the they, because they want to detach themselves from the body, becomes the I. And the story finishes out in the I, as they actually start to connect themselves with other people and realize they're not the only thing that exists. Now that they're actually identifying themselves as an individual. here we are for the very short first chapter of the named novel, Algae Blooms in Boundary Waters. Wait, that was exciting, wasn't it? I was almost going to read this aloud. I think I've justified all the parameters so far. But I got at least name drop the great. Oh, I did. Okay, I'm sorry. That was almost exciting. I just want to make sure I get 2 lake names into this so I can justify the lake parameter. It's important. I got to at least have that thought in my mind as I'm reading through this novel named Algae Blooms in Boundary Waters. This is the first chapter, as of today, called Inspiration. I can make money from this. They grasped the algae in boundary waters. The red algae slimed through fingers. Clumps of algae plopped in the algae muck. The algae quivered. They smelled. Fumes of rot floated from algae plops. Nose stung. Body quivered. Mind floated. The quivers of algae spread from the canoe boat ramp to the shores and trees rising to the sky. The water washed away algae. A red stain remained. Gasoline and bleach fumed to connect. The smells connected they. News of illegal dumping of chemicals in named lake called. The investigation recovered years of dumping chemicals. The site connected they. The heat waves over boundary waters. The algae bloomed, killing lily pads. The algae gelled. The company fined $1 billion. The company went bankrupt. They sat in the pickup. Pickup drived. Road bumped. Pickup wiggled. Thoughts jostled. Algae burned. Algae held water. Great Salt Lake needed water. Battery powers the vehicle. Fuel powers the battery. This is how they made lots of money from algae blooms and boundary waters. Well, I mean, it's close to parameters. I think I might change this to poop someday. Just 'cause. But that's how sometimes I think of my writing. I don't think it's a 1. I think of my writing that way a lot of times. 2. I think so. I think they'd at least kind of dig the story. That's being judgmental. I'm using, understandings of how I think of them. But what about like your mother? My mom would, of course, like this. It's your mom. Most moms, at least. My mom would. Rewrite it to get rid of the smell. I think this for I've been a while. It's been a bit. But I really like where I like the weird narrative, and the story is at least science fiction for today, present. So it fits that parameter. It's 4. It's rare. Maybe I'm feeling generous toward myself. Maybe not. Maybe it's true. Maybe not. What is, I guess, in some way true, because I'm going to save all this data. This story is done for now. So let's write the story with the elements and rate it 4. Publish to archive, the creation, and then the talk behind it, the talk with it. Well, that was Stochastic Fiction Game for today. There will be more. Maybe no, maybe not. If there is a next time, when there is a next time, because there will be a next time. Try to create something, even if it's a different way to step.